Hi, my name's Haley Carter, and today I will be presenting why the Catholic Church is against in vitro fertilization. And in vitro fertilization is the process of taking an egg and sperm and fertilizing it in a laboratory dish outside the body. In vitro fertilization is actually something that the Catholic Church is against, due to the fact that the eggs or embryos that are produced are either aborted or frozen, and it's the parents' choices. And in God's words and in the Catechism, it states that all fertilization and babies are a gift from God. And in the Catholic's point of view, these parents are putting their faith into science rather than in God and praying. And another reason is the abortion part of it. The eggs that are not used are thrown in a trash can, or they can be frozen for many years. And the parents, if they don't want to use them, can actually donate them to someone else. The reason why this is immoral is because of the fact that the baby is not produced in the womb, or two bodies that become one cell after marriage produce the sperm and it becomes fertile in the mother's womb. But in reality, it is actually taken outside of the woman's body and mixed with the father's sperm and the egg of a woman's, and therefore it's made in a petri dish in a lab, and then it's put back into the ovaries of the woman. So it's not technically actually made inside of the woman's body. Another one is the fact of many people don't realize that this process can actually hurt the baby or the mother. In fact, most cases, most babies turn out to have birth defects, and the mothers tend to get injured due to the fact of how the incision is taking place in the ovaries, and then most cases it'll have a leakage from the incision spot, and it can cause abscess or cysts in the ovaries, and then it's a whole nother surgical process. And the babies that become born with birth defects is mostly because of IVF babies tend to have low birth rates and are born a lot earlier than most babies, so they're premature. There are 5 major steps that are taking place in IVF, the process. The first step is to stimulate your body, because a woman's body is only used to produce one egg. But after they stimulate the body of a woman, it tends to produce more eggs. That's why in most cases the eggs are either aborted or frozen, or they put multiple in the womb of the woman to hope that they do get pregnant. The second step is to remove the eggs. So they remove the eggs from the woman's body, and this is why it's not moral, because it is not actually taking place in the side of the woman, but rather it's taken outside and made through science. Hormone injections will be injected in the body so all the eggs mature faster, so the process of the eggs that the women produce are not able to produce and mature at their own speed. They actually use medicine to mature it faster. And then a needle is placed in the ovaries that sucks each egg out at a time from the woman's body. The third step is the doctor will collect all the sperm from the partner or donor. And then the sperm are put in a spin cycle to find the most healthy and well-developed ones. So there's a lot of eggs that are actually taken out, and some of them are actually just thrown out because they believe that the scientists think that they're not well-fitted. And then the fourth step involves the sperm and eggs being united. So this happens in insemination. This is what is mostly known as, and sperm is injected into the eggs with a needle. So this actually takes place in the petri dish in the lab, and then the final step is transferring the embryos back into the uterus of the woman. A medication is taken by the woman to allow the lining of the uterus to actually open up and receive embryos again. Due to the fact of this not really being a real life pregnancy, however, they're trying to trick the woman's body into believing that it is pregnant. Embryos are transferred into the woman's body by a catheter, and then the end of this process, which gives the couple an opportunity to get pregnant in an unnatural way. So as I said before, there's a lot of ovary damage to women, and that is the fact of technology might be great, but it does change the norms that God put for us to follow as times go on. And it states it in the catechism that babies and being fertile is a gift from God. And according to Embryo Project, IVF, in vitro fertilization, in other words, is an assisted reproductive technology initially produced by Patrick Steptoe and Robert Edwards in the 1970s to treat female infertility caused by damaged or blocked fallopian tubes. And science and history still state that there are percentages of women with this still damage. So the fact of this procedure was to help women, but in reality it's still damaging the women. So the ovarian abscess is related to bacteria infection that leaks from the holes that the needle is actually inserted that holds the embryos. And then most women have to actually go back and fix this, so it's a whole nother procedure after trying to get pregnant. In some cases, the infection might cause harm to the infant that's in the womb now, if they did get lucky and get pregnant. In addition to health of the mother, the new baby or infant is at high risk of low birth weight in early pregnancy rather than a natural child. And this, it could be due to many situations. The mother's body is not capable of realizing that it's actually pregnant because it's not a natural way of getting pregnant. And other times it's because they put multiple eggs in the woman's body, and most people are trying for one child, but in reality they end up with more than one. For instance, my mother has a friend that did IVF, and they placed a few eggs inside of her, and they just wanted one child, but they came out with triplets, and the triplets were premature and had to stay in the hospital for multiple months. And some of them they've actually gotten sick multiple times due to low immune system and birth defects. One of them has really bad lungs because they didn't develop because they were months and months early. So IVF is wrong in the faith of Catholics because it's also wrong for children's health as well. So, Donum Vitae is a document from the Catholic Church that expresses opposing views with new technology that allows fertility for women. This document explains that intervention takes place and the normal conception of a child does not happen, then it's actually immoral. If it's not a conception that is natural between natural sex of the husband and wife, then it's not something that God was in God's eyes, and therefore they put their faith in something else. The Catechism of the Catholic Church states that a child is not something owned to someone, but is a gift, and that's on page 631 in the author of the Catechism's Auckland. And I actually didn't realize this procedure was something that was used in the 1900s, and I thought it was something every couple was ordered to do, was to reproduce. And I didn't know about IVF until a few years ago. But once I found out that it was a gift from God to be fertile and have children, I realized why it was not right in the Catholic point of view. Because you have to think, if it's not something God wanted and you're trying to do it anyways is not right in the faith. Therefore, the only way a child is through the marital act between two souls that are combined into one flesh. IVF doesn't rely the faith in God, but rather in the doctors and scientists. According to Penn Medicine, the average cost of a single IVF cycle in the United States is $10,000 to $15,000. Therefore, and that's not including the insurance coverage, patient care, characteristics, and treatment center. That's just the price of the process of the embryos and sperm. I think this is morally wrong in the fact of it's putting a price on a child and a gift from God. It's making a child a liability rather than a precious soul. In other words, the parents making the child a liability by making payments on the child's presence rather than praying and hoping from a gift from God. Even though an embryo has only a few cells, the embryos are souls that have the same likelihood of becoming a child or an individual that needs time and nourishment as well. However, most people believe since it is not inside the womb, it therefore is not a human being. This is far from the truth. Catholics cannot separate those with a few cells from a free soul walking on earth today. And this is why Catholics believe it's not right. Because every person has a cell, it doesn't matter how many or how much of the cells you have. You still are a human soul that is made from God. During the IVF process, the embryos are not used or frozen, or not used, but are frozen and thrown away. Every individual has a soul, but it's thrown away rather than lived out. And according to Pope Francis, this dominant thinking sometimes suggests a false compassion, that which believes it is helpful to woman to promote abortion, an act of dignity to provide enthusiasm, a scientific breakthrough to produce a child, and consider it to be right, rather than a gift to welcome, or to use human lives as guinea pigs, presumably to save others. And I agree with him. In this instance, they don't really know what's going to happen to the embryos, and that is a human life because it has cells, but rather they're using it as a science experiment. In most cases, most of them are thrown out or that it doesn't work. And those who do work, they do have birth defects. So it is being used as a guinea pig or a rat in a science experiment rather than a human being that has a soul. There are actually more eggs that are aborted than even used. If there are 10 embryos, most women choose half of the number and discard the rest. And then from that half, there's only a few that might work. Therefore, the souls do not live out their life, and they're thrown away as if they're a piece of garbage. The human life and dignity of someone is something that the Catholic faith really promotes. It's a part of a social teaching. And that is something that is not promoted in the process of IVF, because a person should be respected and be sacred, but rather it's thrown away or used against what God stated for us to do. Being fertile is a gift from God, and most people in society don't think of it that way. They just think it's something that married couples should do. And Pope Francis states, fidelity to the gospel of life and respect for life as a gift from God sometimes require choice that are courageous and go against the current, which in particular circumstances may become points of conscious objection. There are other paths that can be taken by married couples with the problem of infertility. One path is adoption. There's many kids in this world, over 500,000, that are in foster care homes or in adoption centers that don't get the care and support and the family they need. But most people don't realize that. They want their own blood in their child. But you have to realize that there are a lot of kids nowadays that don't have families that they need to grow up with and to learn and live with. The Council of the Catholic Church explains they can give expression to their generosity by adopting abandoned children or performing demanding services for others. That's on page 631. And, it is generous to set aside your upsets of not being infertile. But the fact is, there's always another choice that is morally correct and allows demanding services to be accomplished, and that is adoption. And there's other ways past too. I've read that the Catholic faith does believe in some scientific processes that helps you get fertile and reproduce, not go against the marital act. Many families look to IVF due to wanting the family they've always dreamed of. You just have to think about it. As a woman or a girl, if the woman can't bear a child, they feel useless. That's something that most girls do look up to. So it is a depressing state when they can't make or produce a child. For a father or a male in this situation, he feels as if he has left his loved ones down. In today's society, it's always, people have made it to where the male is the prime leader of the household, and in most cases, that is true. And if the male can't help in something that could start his family, it does put a heavy weight on their shoulders. So in this instance, the family will do anything in their power to start their own family with their own blood, despite the outsider's point of view. In most circumstances, that's how it is. Most people nowadays, if they want something so desperate and they can't help but want this certain thing, they will go for it, no matter if it's against the faith or against their family's beliefs or honestly what they believe. But on this instance, the Catholic Church doesn't forbid you from coming back. They believe in forgiveness, and even the Bible and the Catechism states that you can ask for forgiveness from God. He died on the cross for us. As long as you're praying and you believe in Him and you understand what you did wrong, Jesus will always be forgiving. So the Catholic Church believes in original sin, which means the Church realizes that all people do make mistakes and sin against God's plan for His sons and daughters. Nobody in this world is perfect. In my eyes, the only ones that were perfect were Mary and Jesus. And Mary was infertile until she got the gift of God. And I feel like most people do forget that story nowadays. To move forward, members of the faith should apologize to God through prayer and repent for their sins against Him. That Catechism of the Catholic Church states, by Christ's will, the Church possesses the power to forgive the sins of the baptized and exercise it through bishops, priests, normally in the sacrament of penance. As long as you're repenting your sins and you know what you did wrong, you acknowledge what you did wrong, there's always a way to improve. Therefore, the only ones who have not sinned are Mary and Jesus. In God's eyes, He loves every one of His creations. Therefore, they are always opportunities for others to overcome their sins. In conclusion, God gives fertility to those as a gift, and it should not be taken for granted. Most people who abort a baby that is within the womb don't realize that they're taking away something that many people in the world that are infertile would die to have. Abortion is more expensive than IVF, but if you weigh the pros and cons, adoption is the way to go rather than going against your faith. It is against this Catholic social teaching about life dignity of the human life. The souls are made in the image of God, to be respected, to be sacred, not to be aborted or to used as a toy. In other words, it's taking another life away from earth that could walk, that could breathe this air, that could learn the ways that we've learned from parents, from family, and from friends. Sins can always be forgiven from God, but it's important to realize the path of IVF is morally wrong from the Catholic Church. It is aborting cells or embryos It's morally wrong, and people don't realize how precious the gift of fertility really is to Jesus and to us. Thank you.